very pleased to say that Gunon is with us for this event this weekend, despite a bit of a health scare earlier on in the week. There are still 112 points available in this championship, so that lead of 10 points that Raffaele Marciello has is very slim indeed, and it's all to play for. This is a track that does tend to court controversy because it has a lot of undulation, a lot of blind crests, and after the events at the Sachsenring last time out, are we ready for any more controversy, Adam Weller?
The spares departments are ready for another profitable weekend, I think, is probably the leading light there. Great circuit for the ADAC GT Masters, has been a part of the calendar ever since we started this championship all the way back in 2007, has always provided fabulous racing, hasn't provided much success for Porsche. Christian Engelhardt was very careful to dampen the expectations for Ian Chen-Guven, just kind of said to a cautionary thing, you know, we might be able to get a podium out of this, but this is not a Porsche circuit. They've only taken one victory here over the over 15 years they've competed in GT Masters, and that, of course, was last year.
And they really need to get as many points as they can. As already mentioned, Christian Engelhardt and Ian Chen-Guven are just 10 points adrift of the lead in the championship, but they need to score points consistently at every race for the remaining 4 races of the season. Defending champion Christopher Mies has teamed up with Tim Zimmermann this year in the #1 car, the Monteplastic by Land Audi, and they are not in the championship hunt this year, so it looks like that title is going to go to another driver and potentially another team. But the focus very much on Raffaele Marciello. He has a teammate in the shape of Daniel Juncadella for the second event running, but Marciello solo at the top of the points, leading the way with 136. Third in the point standings is Albert Costa Balboa and Jack Aitken. They are just 25 points away from the championship lead, and they must fancy their chances at Sachsenring. Jack Aitken was very much saying that he thought he was out of the championship hunt, but then they came away with 2 second places, and suddenly the Lamborghini is back there, and a track that might favour them, do you think?
Could well do. I mean, obviously, for Jack, this is a bit of an adventure into the unknown. He hasn't raced here previously where Costa has done so. But it is a circuit that should, on paper, suit the Lamborghini. Everything about the car's dynamics and the layout of the car, the fact that it is a mid-engine car, would suggest that a circuit like the Sachsenring should suit it. However, in terms of final results, we haven't seen a Lamborghini at the top of the results here in the Sachsenring since 2010, which is before the current manufacturers of the GT3 cars, Lamborghini Squadra Corsa program, even existed. It was Reiter Engineering, the German team, that were building the Lambo GT3 cars at the time. So in theory, yes, this should suit them. In practice, it often hasn't. We'll have to see whether that streak is broken this year.
Well, if there's a driver combination to break the record, you know it's going to be Albert Costa Balboa and Jack Aitken. They are a formidable combination, and we are so excited to have them part of the ADAC GT Masters in 2022. They have entertained all the way. You saw a few moments ago, just as we look at Albert Costa Balboa there in the number 63 Lamborghini, you saw a few moments ago Fabian Schiller. He is sharing driving duties with Jules Gunon, and as mentioned earlier, there is Fabian Schiller coming out of the pit lane at the front of the queue. Jules Gunon did have a little bit of a scare earlier on. A couple of weeks ago, he, well, more than a couple of weeks ago, back in August, he broke a couple of vertebrae in his back in an accident during the IMSA Championship at Virginia International Raceway, and he has been fighting to get back to full fitness, and it looked for a while as though he wasn't going to make it here to the Sachsenring this weekend. We are delighted that he is. He is some 37 points adrift of the championship lead, in 4th place along with teammate Fabian Schiller, but he is by no means out of the championship hunt and is still very much a contender. To remind you, for this year, we have points also awarded in qualifying. So pole position will get 3 points. Second on the grid will get 2 points, and third will get 1 point. So there are points to be scored even in the qualifying session, as we see the cars coming out onto the track at the start of this short, sharp qualifying session.
Just to loop back around to Jules Gounon briefly, heard from him yesterday in the pre-event press conference. He himself is counting himself out of the championship hunt, albeit with an asterisk. He said, you know what, we're an outside shot at best. So we're going to count ourselves out. We're going to go for some wins, and hey, if we walk out of Sachsenring suddenly, miraculously back in the title hunt, then great. But no expectations and therefore no pressure seemed to be the message for himself and Fabian Schiller. Jules, obviously one of the most sought-after AMG factory drivers out there at the moment. We were talking, myself and him, at the Nürburgring earlier in August, and he actually had a rare weekend off between our events at Nürburgring and Lausitz, and he said, you know what, this is the first weekend off I've had in ages, and I've got something like 12 or 14 weekends in a row to contend with after that. Obviously it proved not to be the case because of that incident at Virginia, and I asked him yesterday in the press conference, well, you know, was that a good thing in a sense? You actually got some time at home and, you know, just lounge around a bit in spite of this injury. Was it at all good for you? He said, maybe for about 5 days, and then I became very track sick. I wanted to get back into a race car. He is a true racer's racer, and I'm sure he and Fabian Schiller will be right up there. The Mercedes has been strong here in recent years, so every reason to expect them to appear on the podium.
A true racing driver. There's only so much daytime TV any human being can stand, isn't there? Car's just been out for a sighter lap back into the pits. Just while we have a moment of quiet to tell you about this Sachsenring circuit, you will have noticed already the cars run in an anti-clockwise direction. One of only 2 circuits on the calendar this year where the cars run in that anti-clockwise direction. This circuit, which is 3.671 kilometers around, that's about 2.281 miles. It has 14 turns, 4 to the right and 10 to the left. It has an awful lot of undulation, a gradient of 12.8% at the steepest point going into the final corner. There's some very fast corners, but many of the turns are blind, a lot of blind crests, and it is a track that creates a certain amount of controversy. It's a bit of a tyre killer as well. Tyre degradation has always been an issue here. And walking around the circuit last night, we were taken aback by quite how many marbles from the tyres were at the side of the circuit.
Yeah, I've made a habit this year of trying to walk every circuit. I've never seen so many marbles, so much tyre pickup on the circuit after the Friday's running. It's rather impressive, just the amount of loads that these Pirelli P0 tyres go through.
So you see Max Paul there, just while we look at him, he is a local driver. This is the second home race for him. He lives in Dresden, and actually Lausitzring is a little bit closer, but he considers this to be a home circuit. And since Max Paul and his father have taken over the ownership of the Paul Motorsport car, they've really pulled it together, and they've seen their results very much reflected in the fact that they've got more of a control over their setup and their destiny. Max Paul was just saying that since they have become Paul Motorsport, he has found a real new edge in terms of speed.
Yes, obviously the team rose from the ashes of T3, and you do get the feeling that while there is obviously a lot of that, I suppose, DNA from the previous iteration of the team there is something of a feeling of kind of an all-star garage as well, because you walk into the garage and there are some bits that are branded for other teams and other manufacturers. It's, you know, been very much a kind of dragged together thing after the demise of T3 Motorsport, and yeah, there are quite a lot of very good personnel that have been brought into the team, and it seems to be ever in favour of Max Paul and indeed Marco Mappelli.
Myself and Adam had the pleasure of racing against Max Paul and also Mick Wiesofer and Jan Marzukowski at a local karting track on Thursday night. I'd like to say that I lapped him several times. I'd like to say that. the reality is I stuck with him for about 1.5 corners, and then he disappeared off into the distance, and that is why we talk about it and we don't drive the things. You can see the cars are into the pits. There's not a lot of action on the track, and in fact, there's no action on the track. Every car is in the pits. It is a short qualifying session, but with the air temperature at just 8.3 degrees centigrade, and with tyre degradation an issue, it's very likely that the later in the session we get, the faster the track is going to get and the more pace there is going to be in these cars. So we're going to see a very crowded track at the end of this session. At the moment, even though we've only got 13.5 minutes remaining of this session, nobody has put in a time yet. They're all sat in the pit lane, and towards the end of this session, it is suddenly going to get very busy, and we would expect to see the times tumbling down. I'm just looking to see, last year, it was a 1:18.426 was the fastest time in qualifying. That was set by a Porsche. I expect us to be bettering that this year. But we will see very shortly. We're not expecting rain, and we are expecting the track to get faster and faster. Any driver that goes too soon might just lose the opportunity for pole position. So everybody is waiting for that last-minute opportunity. Of course, doing that, they're going to have issues with traffic because it's quite a short circuit and you've got to find space to put in that hot lap.
To your point about lap time, we've already seen them break the 1:18 barrier here today. Just the one driver, and would you know it, it was Jules Gounon. Clearly he's A-OK. A 1:17.950 in free practice 2 yesterday afternoon. We also saw Chris Mees in the low 1:18s yesterday. So all signs from those sessions point to quicker times this year. But of course, qualifying, particularly in these early mornings, particularly in these rather chilly conditions, can be a different matter. Ian Chen Guven, deep in conversation, I'm sure, with Christian Engelhardt. Can't think of anyone else he'd want to speak to this early in the morning. We remind you, as we often do, that this is Ian Chen Guven's first season in a GT3 car. This is a circuit he has raced in before, of course, in the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany, but it has been a year of learning for the Turkish driver. Can't have a better teammate and tutor than Christian Engelhardt when it comes to racing a Porsche GT3 car, and they really have been a dynamic duo this year. Rather remarkable that last time out at Lausitz marked their first victory, but still very much title contenders. Wins aren't everything in GT Masters. Getting those points on the board, very, very important.
Well, we have a little gap in proceedings. Well, not quite, because the cars are starting to come out on track. Just a couple of other parish notices. We're missing Ricardo Feller. He's on other duties this weekend, so sitting in for him is Dries Vanthoor, and he's obviously an old favourite here in the number 29 car alongside Yusuf Vega. So great to have Dries Vanthoor back in the ranks. We've also only got one Schubert Racing Motorsport BMW on the grid for this race. Nicky Katzberg is not available this weekend, and neither is Niklas Kruten. So we have the two teams have merged, and we've got Ben Green alongside Jesse Krohn, and that will be a great combination. So just one Schubert car, but with no Kruten and Katzberg, Krohn and Green sharing the driving duties in that car. We've also lost the Mad Panda Mercedes, which is a shame, hoping that maybe they'll be back for Hockenheim or next year. But still, plenty of other cars out on the track. Lots of drama still to come. We are at the halfway point of qualifying, and finally we've got some cars out on the track.
Yes, again, we speak about how we are talking about it and not doing it for a reason. If I were a race engineer, I think I'd be too nervous for this strategy of waiting until the end of qualifying. I've seen it go horribly wrong for people before as well. Oh, we'll just use one set of tyres. We'll take it easy. We'll do 1 or 2 flying laps. That's all you need. Red flag comes out with a minute and a half of the session to go and no flying lap on the board, and you are toast. But great levels of confidence clearly in the paddock for each other. Everyone's convinced that they're going to get through scot-free, hassle-free and incident-free, and hopefully that proves to be the case. Pretty much everybody is out there on the circuit now. It'll be a little while before we start to see true flying laps at 2.2 miles and 3.6 kilometres. This is quite a short circuit, and it takes them a little while to get the tyres up to temp in this early morning chill. So I'd say give it another 2 or 3 minutes before we start to see proper flying laps come in.
So, cars out on the track, the noise level starts to increase, and we should hopefully be getting some times before too long. Of course, it'll take a lap or two just to get the heat into those tyres and into the brakes and to get a bit of a rhythm. But you can see already how busy it is out there, and finding a bit of space out on the track is going to be critical. That man there, Raffaele Marciello, he's gone on the first stint on the last few races we've had, the last few rounds that we've had. He's taken the first stint in race 1. He's very keen to get this championship, his first championship in ADAC GT Masters. He wants it, he really does. Riding on board with Albert Costa Balboa, this gives you a great perspective, and it's a shame we can't really stay with him, because going up the hill to some of those corners, it really is completely blind as he comes out of the final turn to cross the line. This is not going to be a lap that will be competitive, just getting heat into the tyres, into the brakes. We will see those lap times tumbling. We have just 8 minutes remaining of this qualifying session, and still nobody has put in a competitive lap.
Oh dear, I'm clearly too nervous disposition for this whole motorsport lark. I would be absolutely having my fingers, toes and anything else I can cross in the garage right now if I were on the crew, on the pit crew, or indeed if I was the other driver. Fat chance of that last one, literally. And we'll see then, hopefully, flying laps come in soon. Of course, you saw just now when Costa Balboa crossed the line, he was still warming up the tyres, and that was his second lap out. He'd already done an out lap, he'd already done one quote-unquote flying lap, and still getting the heat into the tyres. Marciello looks like he might be pressing on a little bit now, but still not looking like he's at full chat by any means. You can tell because he went nowhere near the curb there, coming out of turn 9. But we are starting to see them ramp up. However, come on, let's go and see if this 118 barrier is beatable this morning.
Well, the track temperature has risen by half a degree since this qualifying session has started. Actually, the air temperature has risen by half a degree since this qualifying session started. So things are warming up. Albert Costa Balboa crosses the line at 120.961. Well, it's a little bit closer, isn't it? I don't know whether they're going to quite get the times they were in the heat of yesterday, because the free practice of yesterday, conditions were a lot warmer, and it is a definite nip in the air, as we've said already. But you can see in the background, cars are weaving to get the heat into the tyres. Just to remind you, you see the little green boxes on your graphic. If the box is green, the track is divided into 3 sectors. If the box is green, it means the driver has done a personal best in that sector. If it's red, it means they haven't. If it's purple, as Christian Engelhardt has just gone, it means they are the quickest of anybody. And so we're going to be seeing a few purple sectors, and it's Marvin Dienst who goes to the top of the standings at 120.692. And you can see he was quickest in sector 3. He's gone purple. Albert Costa Balboa is responding. He's gone purple in sector 1, and it looks like he may well be quickest before too long. He's purple in sector 2 as well.
Well on for a sub 119 time here, but I was about to mention how tricky the corner is at Sachsen, turn 13. It can be difficult to slow the car down after the downhill waterfall section, and we got a great example of it from Costa. However, it's still a 118.3. He's going to be kicking himself if he hadn't gone off onto the gravel there. I think that would have been a sub 18.
Wow, and here we go, a replay of that. Just a little bit too much speed into that corner. He did quite well to keep it pointing in the right direction, to be quite honest. And of course, there would have been dirt on the tyre as well that went into the gravel, and he would have lost traction into that final corner. So we'll see whether he can keep going and whether he can ramp it up a bit more. Fabian Schiller's gone purple in sector 1, a personal best in sector 2. He's the first into the 117. So Fabian Schiller on to provisional pole position. Less than 5 minutes of this session remaining, and suddenly it's all come alive.
Well, as anticipated, a grandstand finish to our qualifying session tends to be the way, doesn't it? They stall on us in the first few minutes, and then everybody comes to the party. Fabian Schiller with a 117.990, just a few hundredths off the best that we saw from his teammate Jules Gounon in the Friday running. Costa Balboa with a not-so-special second sector, but it could still be a better time. Let's see if he improves.
Raffaele Marciello currently loitering down in 14th place. Our championship leader make that 15th because he now responds. Sector 2, he goes purple. So what can Marciello do? This is going to be very significant because a good starting position at this circuit is fairly critical. Here he comes out of the final corner to cross the line. Where will he go? And it will be pole position. Raffaele Marciello, provisional pole. It's a Mercedes 1-2 at the moment. Fabian Schiller second, but we've got drivers improving all the way. Elliot Seppänen, and that is Florian Spengler, who's done a bit of rallycross. He's gone through a few billboards. Now, don't think this will bring out a red flag. If it does, any other drivers leaving it till late. And look at all. Oh, and that's Elliot Seppänen into the gravel. So Elliot Seppänen, this is going to bring out a red flag. Anybody who's left it late in the session is going to have problems. Look at all the debris on the track.
Polystyrene everywhere. It's like someone's let a rabid dog into the Amazon parcel factory down there, out of the last corner. Yellows at turn 8 and 9. That's where Seppänen has gone off. No sign of a red just yet, but the fact of the matter is, faster times are going to be hard to come by with a car in the gravel and all of that mess out of the last corner. If that needs to be...
Red.
Yes, there you go. I was just about to say, if that needs to be looked at, a red flag is imminent, and clearly that was to be expected. Now, with 2 minutes and 58 left to go, I wonder if A, they restart the session, and B, even if they bother, these guys like 2 or 3 laps to warm up the tyres.
This is exactly what we said was the risk, that when you leave it late in the session, yes, the track gets faster, but you risk everything if there's a red flag, and with less than 3 minutes remaining, you're just not going to get the heat into the tyres to make a competitive challenge on pole position. Such a shame for Elliot Seppänen. He'd gone purple. He was pushing really hard. They had to throw the red flag, though. If a car has got that far into the gravel, it's conceivable that another car could get that far into the gravel, and it was always going to happen. But it's a shame. I mean, Elliot Seppänen, a P8 is not bad going. But it looked like he might improve on that. But let's have a look again, and just a little bit too much. Completely separate from the Spengler incident that we saw, and he just got the back end stepping out into the corner and up into the gravel trap, deep gravel traps. There's no getting out of that. But the Florian Spengler incident, that was the spectacular one with the showers of polystyrene, the Flowpack factory breakout all across the track. And there is Seppänen out of the car. His session most certainly is over, and I would suggest that everybody's session is probably over.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what the ruling is from race control, but this does look like it could be the final nail for a few drivers that would expect to be a little further up there, I would say. Yeah, there it is. That
used to say ADAC. Now it's just A.
A? Yeah, exactly. What happened here, eh?
Right, let's have a look at this. Is he going to take a Pirelli as well? Oh. Yes. Oh, no, the Pirelli's... Oh, no,
that's virtual advertising.
That's virtual, yes. That completely threw me, that did. Oh, there we go. Yes, so that's why you do virtual advertising. You can't get a car driving through it. So here we go. And that was very dramatic indeed. So just to summarise, we have less than 3 minutes remaining of this session. We are under red flag conditions. We have just 2 drivers in the 117, the fastest of which is Raffaele Marciello. Fabian Schiller, another Mercedes, a 117.990, so that is about a 10th slower. Kim Louis Schramm doing well in 3rd place. Christian Engelhardt second in the championship in P4 with a 118.278 as we look at Elias Seppänen surveying the carnage. Albert Costa Balboa in 6th. Ahead of him was Mick Wiesofer. Marvin Dienst, good job for him in 7th, ahead of Elias Seppänen. Patrick Niederhauser and Max Paul rounding out the top 10. Ben Green will be pretty fed up. He's down in 13th at the moment, and he was probably looking for better than that. And Arthur Rougier down in 19th and last. So that's going to be bad news for them. Also, Yusufa Vega in the defending championship car, the number 29 car.
Sector, so he said to me, second sector for sure, we lost 110, but we need to try in last sector. He said,
I'm just listening in.
So there's quite a lot of margin. You can improve 1 to 10. Yeah, you can. So, I mean, the right tire will put in rubbish at some point.
That's Daniel Yucadea. with engineer.
Imagine Schiller is 76.
Schiller on the second lap was already not improving.
Yeah, he said to me it was big. But
I feel so rude listening in, but we always try and garner any information. Just interesting to hear.
Shit on the tires. So it's a reason. So it's better to try. One lap, he will say to me, it's fully shit.
Yeah. While we're just looking at those, Max Paul is 10th in the standings at the moment. He is under an investigation for achieving his fastest lap time under a yellow flag, and that could be depressing news for him and teammate Marco Mappelli, if that is seen to be the case.
Yes, I have to imagine that he might not be the only one to fall foul of that, potentially, because everyone was just starting to ramp up at the time, weren't they? Engines fire. Now, we haven't had the bulletin through from race control that we normally get. The definitive session will not be resumed. It seems like people are expecting to get back out there onto the circuit. I, however, have not seen a man with a mop anywhere near the Sachsenring graveyard yet, so I have my reservations.
It did more than a mop for that, mate.
Industrial Hoover.
Yeah, that'll be the one. A lap time here, 1:17. An out lap, I guess, is going to be, what, 1:25, maybe, something like that. So you could potentially get a couple of laps in just before they cross the line. Of course, once the cars have crossed the line, even if the clock strikes 0, as long as they're on that lap will still count. So potentially you could get a couple of laps in and then get across the line to put in a fastest lap. So potentially it could be the case. It's a bit of a long stretch. I might be proven wrong here. So, as you can see, drivers are all still in their cars, so there doesn't appear to be any mass exodus that I can see. Still all in the pit lane, so it may be we are going to have a very crowded track when this goes back to green, and they are going to have to get a shift on to get round to get an out lap, another potentially warming up lap, and then a hot lap.
Yeah, I mean, historically speaking, and just this morning, session will be resumed at 9:14, so we've got just over 1 minute before the session will go live again. But historically speaking, they need more than one warm-up lap pretty much everywhere. That's certainly proven the case here at Sachsenring. There's going to be a lot of frantic heating of the tyres. I think we're going to have a very slow, very slalom-ish queue of cars heading towards the start line for one final flying lap.
You had a little glimpse there of race control, and this isn't just one man with a monitor in a box somewhere.
Oh, no.
This is a mighty team of people. They have cameras at every angle, looking at everything. They have an awful lot of data. They do a fantastic job. The race director, Sven Stopper, heads it up, and they really do steward this correctly. And they are looking at all that's going on, and they will currently be investigating that potential Max Paul problem, let's call it that, in the number 71 car. But yes, it was nice to have a little glimpse into the steward's room there. We are now about 5 seconds away. Oh, it says on the time screen 5 seconds away. In fact, we've gone green already, according to the graphic that you can see. So look at this. The cars are going out. The session will be resumed and is resumed. And out they come. It is Thierry Vermeulen who's leading the way ahead of the polystyrene scattering Florian Spengler. Then it's Patrick Niederhauser, and then that looked like Kim Louis Schramm. The rest of the cars coming out, they're going to have to get a shift on here, get heat into the tyres, get some space, and get that lap in. Don't go anywhere. The next 3.5 minutes or so, 4 minutes or so, are going to be lively and spectacular.
That they will, and I've never seen quite such a purposeful pit exit during one of our qualifying sessions, but everyone wanted to get out there, as you rightly say, with the hope of getting 2 flying laps in. It is just about possible if you're quick on the gun getting back out onto the circuit. A few teams were taking a rather more leisurely stance. The Drago ZVO cars haven't left at all.
No.
They're confident, seemingly, although if I were Marvin Dietz, I'd maybe think I could go a little bit further than 7th place, but they're not forthcoming, so everyone else has the opportunity to maybe lift themselves past the Mercedes duo.
So this is significant, with track position so critical here at Sachsenring. Starting position, the 2nd place car being driven by Fabian Schiller. I've just seen him get out of the car and walk into the garage, so he will definitely not be out in this session. So clearly thinks that he has P2 safely under his belt. but there are a number of cars, about 18 of them that I can see out on the track that want to argue about that, make that 17. But the track is crowded. There are a lot of cars out there. They're all looking to improve. So this is an outlap at the moment, but now they are heading around, and soon we will start to see whether anyone can beat that time. It is going to be a one-lap dash for that pole position.
I think the only two that could potentially do 2 flying laps are the 2 cars we're looking at, Vermeulen and Spengler. Potentially the next car in the queue, that's the 15 of Patrick Niederhauser, might just have got across the line in time to try for a second flying lap as well. But for everyone else, yes, it is going to be a one-lap dash. Not a promising first sector for either of these 2 car collection motorsports Audis. Let's see if anyone can find something special.
So we follow these 2 cars at the moment. There is now just over 20 seconds left of this qualifying session. Remember, once they've crossed the line, as long as the clock has not struck 0, no! Car 22 into the gravel trap. That's Joel Sturm, and that is going to bring out yellow flags.
At the exact same corner where Elias Seppänen had his issues earlier on. So clearly, turn 8 is proving to be tricky for everyone today. A few cars had got past him before the yellow flag was put out. Will anyone get an improved time?
Well, certainly anyone who was behind him is not going to, because they will have to back off in that turn 8. You could see Joel Sturm just throwing his head back in the car. He is frustrated. This session, well, it doesn't look like anybody is going to improve on their time. So it built up to be an awful lot, but nobody, according to our timing screens, is improving as we ride with Christian Engelhardt, and he knows the session is very much over. So what looked like having lots of potential has suddenly turned into something of a damp squib. The red flags are out, the session is brought to a stop, and it looks like things are very much as they were.
Fingers and toes crossed for Max Paul. He did improve to 1:18.790. He'd had his time that he was under investigation for deleted. So let's hope it wasn't yellow flags this time. You saw there, the car got sent into the air.
It was going over.
Indeed, that was very hairy indeed.
So, at the end of qualifying session 1, this for race 11 of this 14-race season, and a flat tyre. Now, whether that was what caused him to spin or whether that happened as a result of the spin remains to be seen, but you can see the left rear of that Porsche is absolutely deflated. But at the end of this session is Raffaele Marciello, who scores pole position, and that'll be an additional 3 points in his championship standings. Fabian Schiller, who is in second, will get 2 points. Kim Louis Schramm in third will get 1 point. Then it's Christian Engelhardt, Mick Wiesover, Albert Costa Balboa, Marvin Dienst, Elias Seppänen, despite that earlier spin, Patrick Niederhauser and Samuel Vega rounding out the top 10. We're riding on board with the pole sitter for this afternoon's race. Raffaele Marciello does it once again. Another pole position. So that is the 4th pole position for the number 48 Manfilter Team Landgraf Mercedes. And as you can see, the point standings have changed already. And that's 3 points that Marciello has gained on the 2nd place Engelhardt and Guven. That moves Costa, Balboa and Aitken down to 28 points adrift of the championship lead.
So this rather matches up with recent history for Mercedes. Every year since the AMG GT3 replaced the SLS, they have won, with the exception of 2018. In 2016, 17, 19, 2020 and 2021, we have had a Mercedes AMG GT3 take a win here in GT Masters at the Sachsenring. Both Marciello and Schiller are in very good positions to continue that streak.
So Jules Gounon did well. He scored 2 points and he never even got in the car. I mean, how good is that? So out of the car gets Raffaele Marciello. Receives a congratulations from the team. He is a driver who is very much on the crest of a wave. He's just won the GT World Challenge Europe Championship, of course, and he wants to add the GT Masters German International GT Champion to that title. There you can see with Daniel Junkadea, his new co-pilot. The two of them have really gelled and got together really well. He is one of many co-pilots that Raffaele has had this year, but I'd say that with Juncadella, the two of them really have clicked, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. They know each other well, both as teammates at this year's Spa 24, as rivals back in their Formula 3 days. I think they are two drivers who know what they're capable of together, and certainly Raffaele, who has often been rather critical of those around him, has not had much bad to say about Danny Juncadella. He knows what Danny's capable of better than almost anyone.
So let's take a look at the standings after qualifying 1 for race 11 of this 14-race season. The first race of the weekend is Raffaele Marciello, who scores that pole position ahead of Fabian Schiller and Kim Louis Schramm. Christian Engelhardt, Mick Wieshofer, Albert Costa-Balba, Marvin Deans, a good job there in P7. Elias Sepinen, despite that spin bringing out the red flags, is still able to stay in 8th place, just 4/10 of pole position. And then it's Patrick Niederhauser, Salman Vega, Max Paul, Joel Sturm, Ben Green, Thierry Vermeulen, Tim Zimmerman, Arthur Rougier, a second covering the top 11 on the grid. It really is close and competitive in the GT Masters. In 17th place was the polystyrene scattering Florian Spengler machine, the number 69 car, ahead of Simon Riker, and Youssef Vega did not have a great qualifying session, and in fact 3 Audis propping up the rear of the grid. But that is very much all to play for. It is a Mercedes front row for this afternoon's race. It will be Raffaele Marciello, who starts on pole position alongside Fabian Schiller. Will it be Marciello who extends his championship lead this afternoon? Join us at 1 p.m. local time to find out. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.